All right. We're recording, and hopefully that thing goes away, and my mouse, I'll move it. All right. So I guess here we are, and yeah, I'm really excited about this because, like, you were one of the people that helped me make the group, right? About a year ago.
Reluctantly.
Yeah, we kind of just hashtag #MeToo'd you into this thing. But
that's right, yeah.
Yeah, you didn't really. But your brain, we liked it, or at least I liked it, so I wanted your input. But even after...
I think I was actually just pretending I didn't want to be, but I actually really wanted you guys to twist my arm and make me feel like I was really wanted.
That's right.
And
you just wanted to be
history, so,
the beautiful face, which is, it turns out, is fucking true. You are a handsome man.
Oh, shit. Flattery will get you absolutely everywhere with me. So, just a fair warning on that to begin with, I guess. But
yeah, I know that I have said those exact same words to people. Yeah, so I'm glad that somebody else uses it. But yeah, after we've been talking for a year, and I know quite a few people decently well as far as what they do, like where they live, what their hobbies are. Like, all I know about you is you sell mattresses. You live in Canada, and
on a good day I sell them. Yeah.
You said that business was kind of going down on that since. Oh gosh.
Ever since the tariffs have come on.
Yeah, here I am trying to avoid politics, and that immediately comes up. Yeah.
Yeah, well, people do say politics affects everything, but that's okay. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah. What else? You like girls as much as I do. I know that. You flirt with guys as much as I do.
We can identify on those common grounds. Okay, so if you like vagina, I like vagina. It's good that we have that in common. I mean, I don't think that really affects our conversation in any way, but yeah.
Oh, it certainly does. I think that if we both liked the male genitalia, we would probably be hitting on each other immediately. The first 5 minutes.
What makes you think that I'm not?
This is true. Exploring is a good thing in life to do.
That's right.
But yeah, what are your hobbies, man?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I guess that's kind of part of the whole thing of this call is to talk about this. But
yeah,
I'm a pretty typical white male, I mean, my hobbies, aside from posting on Facebook too much and talking about politics, I love listening to a lot of rock and roll music. I like to write. I'm building an old sports car. I've been involved in one way or another around building or just loving fast cars since I was probably it was before Fast and the Furious, in my defense, before the first Fast and the Furious movie came out that I was getting into that stuff.
Well, people have liked fast vehicles and fast animals since before Fast and the Furious. I think you're fine there.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that people know I'm not like alpha douche. I'm like beta douche level, But yeah, it's one of those things that people got to have something interesting to do, I guess. I definitely like to read a lot of fiction, but more in the last 2 years, it's been more serious books, I suppose. Philosophy, psychology. I take online courses on YouTube for fun, just because sometimes I'm bored, and I don't know. I like to work out. I've done sort of amateur powerlifting for off and on for around 12 years.
What's amateur powerlifting look like? Like, to be fair, I don't know what pro powerlifting looks like either.
Oh, they're both pretty lame. It's just it's exercise built around doing, squats and bench press and deadlift, but
is it just basically to look like a beast? Because Jesse and I have gone to the gym a few times. It's been a while for myself, but I remember seeing some people that looked like cartoon characters. Like, have you seen Johnny Bravo? Just big beefy dude and these tiny. I saw someone that looked exactly like that. Is that kind of what you're going for? Or?
No. Powerlifting's, I would call it functional, but I don't know if that's a really good point to make, but it is about being stronger, but it's so hard on the body, and I'm not really built for it, kind of a naturally smaller guy with small joints, and after 12 years, my wrists and my shoulders can't really handle a lot of that stuff very well anymore, so I just keep working out because I find it's actually psychologically good for my well-being. It gives you something to orient yourself towards that you can actually measure the results, right? I mean, you have to have some sort of routine to go for. So, somehow I just fell into that. And,
when I was going, I kept an Excel spreadsheet with what I lifted in this category, and then I'd switch it up throughout the weeks. And some people just didn't keep track of it in any way, shape, or form, which always kind of surprised me. Do you keep track of that stuff? So it's like leveling up a RPG character kind of thing?
That's a hell of a way to think about it, and I used to think about it the same way. I used to keep a journal where I would do the same thing. There was 10 years ago when I first moved to the city that I'm in, I was part of an old web forum where there was kind of a group of guys that were into lifting, and we used to all list our journals publicly, and then, you would share your progress online because that would keep you right in line. Like, if you weren't posting in and telling people what you were doing, well,
you'd
you
berate
essentially
each other,
felt
like, get
guilty.
your shit together, man. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like a support group. For me now, I've taken on a lot of other things in my life through business and relationships, which are ultimately going to make me grow as a person a lot more than just focusing on working out. So, I don't get as hardcore about that kind of stuff as I used to. And I know enough from experience that, like, I know if I'm not eating enough and I'm not sleeping enough and I'm not pushing myself reasonably hard, that I'm just wasting my time at it. So, I don't have to think about it too much. I kind of know, more or less what I'm doing. I don't have to put too much time and effort into it, which is good because, I think you can only spend so much time thinking about any one thing. And if you're more interested, like, these days I'm more interested in talking about, I think deeper things, than just how I look and, how I feel. Plus I'm 32 years old, so, I'm at the prime of my life, but it's only going to start going downhill soon enough.
Yeah,
so,
he says after flattery will get you everywhere. Let's just not talk about my looks. But, if you do.
Hey man, I like what I'm seeing, so, I'm in if you're in.
I like the way I look. I think I'm a pretty charming guy. But every time someone's like, oh, I love how soft your hands are, part of me kind of is like, well, that doesn't make me feel very manly. I feel like I should start, just grabbing sandpaper and fucking beating the shit out of it. Get something there. But
honest to God, Kate, one of my best friends, he's in the trades. He's a welder. Like, I live in northern Alberta, and this is a big thing up here. Like, if you're not working in the oil field or you're welding or whatever, that's just kind of the norm. Blue collar way to make a hell of a living here, really, but it's hard work. And he's a lot like me. And like you, like we're not 6'5" giants that were growing up on farms and stuff. And you want to have a certain amount of masculine appeal. But one of his things was, I'm always going to try and rough up my hands because I want to have grizzly old hands when I get old. And I was like, why? I mean, like, women actually do like having soft skin because I've been complimented on the same thing before. But it's true. I mean, like, there are some pseudo-feminine qualities that women are very much attracted to, and yeah, I mean that makes sense, because what's the number one thing on women's magazines? It's not good-looking guys or masculine men. It's good-looking women. That's the most interesting thing to anybody. So I'm okay with being a little feminine in some ways. It means you're kind of more attractive and on some level to some people.
Yeah,
I'm okay with that.
To some extent, I have to remind myself it doesn't really matter. And then the other part of me is like, look, man. So as you mentioned, Alberta, Canada, I actually get along with welders really well, and I teach a lot of them how to use SolidWorks sometimes too. My dad was a welder. We grew up almost like on a hobby farm to some extent, and I helped with local farms, and my hands used to be like that. And it was, what the hell happened to you? When did you? It's these damned books, but there's no way I'm putting those things down now. I don't know. I didn't even start reading until graduating high school, and my dad's always given me shit. Like, I always tried to get you to read, and you just never read, you stubborn bastard. And now, after you leave my house, you're doing this thing I ask? Well, yeah. Yeah, I am, I suppose.
It's reverse psychology, like I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, just an aside, random point on this. One of the ways that you can tell that someone has a higher metabolism is by how quickly their hands get rid of calluses. And I pretty much build mine up every week that I go to do deadlifts.
Yeah.
That you end up folding the skin over and you build up new calluses. Mine heal within like a few days, they're just gone. And that's one of the reasons why I'm... Yeah, I'm like a naturally skinny little beanpole, you know, like I have to really work to get fat. That's why I'm having a beer right now. And if I had a...
Well, let me see that thing. That straight up looked like a Coca-Cola to me. Like it's...
No, it's a Budweiser.
I thought that was Coke.
Yeah.
How
that's
American
all a ruse.
Of you.
Yeah. If I hold it like this, I'm like, hey. Yeah, you know, this was a leftover a friend brought over. I don't usually buy Budweiser, but, you know, leftover beer is good. Free beer tastes the best, so you don't let it go to waste.
Free food of any...
Yeah.
So when we first moved out, my buddy Jesse and I, and we got this apartment, free everything was gold, especially when you have, like, you're just moving out.
Yeah.
We had a lazy boy that was broken, and we had like a old tube TV and like 2 beds, and then maybe some silverware. But I remember we really wanted a couch as soon as we could, but couches are expensive, man. And one day we go downstairs, we're just throwing the garbage away, and there was this couch just next to the dumpster. We thought, this is gold. We figured, well, let's have a smell test. As long as it doesn't smell like garbage, I think we're gold. And
that sounds like science to me.
Well, yeah. The funny thing was it had like a perfume smell. And, you know, young guys, we were thinking some ladies owned this. This'll be it. This is it. This is a good couch.
Yeah, if it doesn't smell like old farts, you're off to the races, you know. You're ahead of the curve right there. Yeah.
I don't think we ever brought it to Jesse, did we ever put a black light on that thing? No. That's probably best. No, I'm sure
you still have the couch?
No. Oh god, that's gone now.
No? Okay. Okay. Well, now you'll never know, and that's going to eat away at you. So, you really should have done that. But
yeah, it's the regret versus remorse kind of thing.
Yeah, choose your poison, you know.
Yeah. What was it? Writing. I tried to. I'm still thinking of getting into writing to some extent. Like I started a D&D campaign where that's my plan, is to turn it into a series of short stories or something. Like you mentioned writing. What do you like to write?
I like to write because it organizes my thoughts, you know. I mean, like if people have seen my posts, I mean, we haven't really quite done the introduction yet, but I'm sure you'll put this up on the headline when you post it about who I am. But if people read, I mean, especially my own friends that, probably see a lot of my posts that are on there,
Yep.
I'd like to participate actively in conjecture and refutation. And the whole idea of that is to put an idea out there. It's way easier to talk about it or to write it down than it is to just keep it in your head. So
yeah,
if you want to know what it is that you even believe, you should have a good discussion group, or you should write. It's why in our group chat that I feel like I'm probably actively annoying people in the group, because I do go off on tangents in there too. But I like to bounce ideas off people so I can figure out which ones are awful, and figure out which part of me needs.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. You can tell which people probably do it as well, because they tend to have more consistent viewpoints. You see, like, the whole point of it is to figure out which part of you needs to die. Because you can exhaust the limits of your intellect until you hit a wall, and you can figure out, okay, here's how far I can go with this idea before it's rubbing up against all these other beliefs or these other facts that I know. And something's got to give. Something's wrong, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, something breaks. So that's the whole conjecture and refutation process that people don't think of science being really done that way. It's not exactly science. It's more like pre-science. But that's how philosophy sort of evolved into it, is like, how do you even figure out what hypothesis is a good hypothesis? Well, you spend a lot of time figuring out what conjecture makes sense. You get to the limits of it, especially if you're going to figure out, especially if there's money involved. You're not going to spend any money researching something if it doesn't get past that level where it seems to make sense consistently with what you already know.
I think talking about ideas out loud and being sincerely willing to break your ideas or break other people's ideas, I think that could be, under some circumstances, described as a science. Sure, because you are coming up with your own ideas or hypotheses, however horribly formed they are, and putting them forward.
Right.
And then somebody else tries to break it, which is exactly what science is, trying to disprove you. And hopefully, like in science, you get points for breaking your own ideas before you put them forward. So I've got all these little notes that, oddly enough, on that dating site that we've talked about a little bit. One of the questions is, oh God, what is it? If you were to die and someone had to go through your stuff, like someone close to you, would they be surprised at what they found? And I'm pretty open. Like, I don't hide a whole lot, which is probably a bad thing to some extent, but I think that they might be surprised at all of the little notes that I write to just think. And I've read through some of those over the years, and it's like, I'm dumb. I'm dumb all the time. And then every once in a while I come across this little piece, and it's like, that's good. I still agree with that. Yeah. And I can expand on it more. So
that's one of the wonderful things about writing. And one of the reasons why I post a lot on my own personal page, probably more than I do with the group, is that I really like to sometimes go back over my old stuff to see where I've changed or where I've stayed the same, a year or 6 months later even, because people aren't static, right? I mean, especially if you're actually trying to challenge your ideas, you should be able to come back. It would actually alarm me more if I came back to everything that I was writing today 5 years later and I still agreed with everything. I would be like, well, shit, there's no way that that's good, because I don't know that much.
Yeah, there's been a lot of
really does. Yeah. And
then you read another book, and it's breaking something. I think my favorite moments are when I read other books on subjects that I'm interested in and have opinions on, and I agree with some of it and can specify which parts I disagree with. Yeah. Like, we had, and Brian and a few others have been talking about Sapiens to some extent. And there were some parts in there that I was like, I don't buy all this, but the rest of it is gold.
Yeah, I actually have yet to get through that one. See, our group, like, for people that don't know this, we have a bit of a group chat. And there's some really great guys in there that are just really fonts of knowledge. Like, Brian's one of those guys that he's really quite an interesting dude because you wouldn't think of it. I mean, and people have their biases. He's a blue collar worker. He's one of the most educated people that I have ever met.
Yeah, he only
that doesn't even have any formal.
Overnight.
Yeah, he has no formal education, but he's absolutely brilliant, and he's so well read. It's like one of those guys you can bring it up in the group, and he'll be like, "Oh yeah, I've read that," and he'll know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah,
he's very aware of his own positions. Yeah. Yeah.
And then, what was it? I think a few weeks into the group, or into the Enlightenment, Values, and Civil Discourse group, someone asked, I don't remember who it was, but they had a poll, how many books do you read? And Brian was like, one a week? And I can see it.
Yeah.
Like, every time a new book comes out that I want, he has it, and he's reading it, and he's talking about it, and it's like, fucking amen. I know you work. I know you work a lot.
He's probably, he likes his audiobooks, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
And you guys have both got me finally started on audiobooks, which might be really good for me because I get streaky with reading, like it took me a while to read, like, say, a Steven Pinker book because I find them a little bit bland, and other books I can get through them really quick.
Yeah.
But
I know
you have
that
to put
I
in work
when I'm working out. It's
like
the perfect time.
Yeah, that would probably not be very motivating to me at the gym, but even just being able to listen to it in the car on the way to work is that's an extra hour a day for me to listen to new material. And of course, podcasts and all that are a wonderful way for people to passively kind of learn things. So we have a possibility if someone wants to learn about the world today through those new kinds of mediums, that you can learn an awful lot in a way that doesn't necessarily eat up your time the way that a book does. As wonderful as books are, and everybody should read from time to time,
they require
it's
you
not
to
always
sit
easy
down.
to keep that habit.
They keep you from working. You literally cannot work. You cannot drive. You cannot run. You can't do anything. You are devoting your time to reading. And like right now, I'm reading about Lawrence in Arabia, which is filled with people that are well off family-wise, and they get to do all of these things around the world and read these books. And you know darn well that the average person back then couldn't do that. They were busy. And
that's a sign of wealth for sure. Yeah.
And they were talking about how the middle class couldn't even go to college or university in any way, shape, or form. And then now suddenly, at this point, I don't remember who it is, Prost or something. I'm not even going to say that. I don't remember. One of the German guys in this book, at his time, they changed some of their structures or social structures, and now people are able to go to university that have never gone. And I think it's just expanding more and more on that, and YouTube and audiobooks have just opened that up to people that can be at work. As long as you're not talking to somebody for work, you can pretty much be listening to a book.
What blows me away about that is it's actually a really good example of how your social changes are often really slow and painful processes for things to really change in terms of social progress. But technology is kind of like little explosions. I mean, it took a long time between the creation of universities before the wealthy could only be the only ones that could go and attend, higher learning, before that would trickle down and be even attainable to middle class, lower class as a way of improving, your means of getting ahead in the world. But talking about the idea of audiobooks and podcasts as a way of learning, there's many really, really good professors. Like, I used to be really into physics. I just used to find the hard sciences used to be more interesting to me than philosophy and psychology, which is more the last few years. But you could take
lectures.
Oh yeah. You can watch Harvard lectures for free on YouTube if you want to just sit in a classroom and do it now. So
even
it's
Richard
pretty
Feynman,
remarkable.
Yeah, Richard Feynman, Richard Dawkins, and famously right now, Jordan Peterson's lectures are all over on there, and even his psychology ones, not even the political ones, you could essentially get almost a degree in it. And,
you can take his courses, yeah, basically.
And I recently went to school and took some sociology and took some archaeology or stuff like this, evolution, and I just read books, listen to Dawkins and a bunch of other things, and that class was such a breeze to me. Like, just reading Guns, Germs, and Steel made the what's it called? Ancient history or history class. God, what is it? Prehistory class was just like, oh God, just a few things were missing, and I can put these together, and it's gold. It's gold, and it was essentially free.
Yeah, and that's complex subject matter that, even if it was just 15 years ago, I mean, our world's changed a lot even since we would have been in high school or anything like that, where the way of learning like that wasn't really a possibility for us, right?
Yeah.
And now people all around the world have smartphones.
Yeah, and we could technically be FaceTiming on this, and while I'm driving, I listen to audiobooks through this. You even not too long ago, you'd have to sit at a computer and do that.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I love it.
It is awesome. Yeah. It is awesome. I mean, our world's a pretty incredible place. It's getting better all the time. That's a good example of what trickle down actually means, by the way. People think that trickle down means that the poor are just going to be rich because the money will trickle down to the poor. It's like everybody knows that's not how it works, because that's obviously wrong. But it's the standard of living and the availability of existing things that trickles down. It always starts at the top and then slowly works its way down. And
it's like pouring sand, like a hourglass kind of thing, or slow buildup of dust, where as you're pouring it on there, I mean, you're pouring it in specific places, and that mound keeps growing. But everything else, I mean, it can't all go on top. That stuff's going to fall down, and then it slowly raises the ground, like Hitchens would say sometimes. If you just give women the ability to control their reproductive cycle to any degree, the ground just rises for people around there.
Oh,
how true that is, I don't know, but I bet he's right.
That's probably, a good example of a social change anyway that can make little explosions too, right? I mean, women's freedom, it makes countries so much richer that it's, fighting against that it just really staggers the mind as to how people are so against it. And maybe it's not. Maybe not people in our culture, maybe not even that many other cultures around the world. I think the world's waking up to that. It's like, look, if you want to keep up with these other countries, if you want to be competitive with the West, you can't keep your women in cloth bags in the desert forever, because you're just going to fall further and further behind. And it's just the way it is. They have no choice, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, and what was it? I don't remember who it was that advised me. Oh God, I'm gonna feel awful if I don't look it up almost real quick. What is it? People of the Books on Facebook. People of the Books by. Oh man, this is gonna drive me nuts.
I'm gonna look this up while you are too here. So.
Here we go. Lalo Degash. He started that group. And for a while, I was really part of it and writing book reviews and stuff within there. But he immediately advised to read the book, Letters to a Young Muslim by, oh man, I'm forgetting the name of the author. But that was Gobash. That was a really good book. And I was really surprised at how much that you could say feminism was in there. and what is the word for keeping politics or your political structure separate from religion?
Was this book? What's the theme of the book? Is it reasons to incentivize young Muslims as to why some progress is in your best interest, or?
To some extent, yes, but it's letters to a young Muslim, and the title kind of gives it away. It's letters specifically to his son. It's a bunch of small letters, a book of letters to him, to improve his world, his sister or his siblings' world, and avoid terrorism is really what it really seems like. Stay away from becoming fanatical in any one thing, and really was a fantastic example of Enlightenment values, just argued from, I think, where was he from? United Arab Emirates.
Wow.
Yeah, I was surprised. I thought it was gold.
There's a lot of people in the, well, you call it the Muslim world is a very big place because it's spread out all over the place. But I mean, definitely within the Arabic world, there are a lot of people that are actually embracing Enlightenment values. Of course, that's a dangerous road to go on. It takes a lot of balls and a lot of guts to be in those places and actually pursue those things actively. I mean, it's we have it so good here. We can just sit around and casually talk about it. And even though we think that our climate is toxic, and we have our problems with polarization, but it's not that bad. We can just sit around and actually talk about this openly. Sure puts things into perspective, right? So
somebody can have a picture of the president decapitated or any number of deities and just fuck Jesus, fuck Muhammad, and I'm not worried about my door busting in any way, shape, or form. And those guys,
well, that's the funny thing about that image. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a Donald Trump fan, but, the very fact that you don't have a government kicking in your fucking door by a bunch of thugs for making that image shows you that you shouldn't have made the image. And that's the beautiful thing about freedom of speech, is that sometimes these expressions just they kind of become self-disproven. I hate to quote the guy, but I think it was Milo Yiannopoulos said that silence is the best disinfectant. And it's
I've
true.
Heard a lot of people say that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe I shouldn't be giving him the credit then. He probably took it from someone else. But either way, it doesn't matter the messenger. The point is there's a truth. Yep. You want to have open inquiry and discussion as much as possible, and I'm glad to be part of a group that, generally speaking, seems to be okay with it. Someone posted that very image was posted in our group, and the first response, somebody asked, "What do you think of this?" Well, free speech. It's yeah, fair enough, man. It's free speech. You can depict almost anything that you want. The exception to the rule.
I've heard
the moment you're
so
picking on
much.
any perceived minority, that's the problem, where freedom of speech does not apply to any group or individual that's considered to be part of a minority group. So if you were gonna draw a picture of Muhammad, doing anything, I guess, just anything. A picture of Muhammad, doing anything.
A stick guy that just says Mo. Well, who did that? That was Majid Nawaz, I think, drew a stick person and said, "This is Mo. He's talking to Jesus."
Yeah.
People were pissed.
Yeah.
Let me check the time here real quick. Oh, we've
got on him for that one.
Yeah, we've got 3 minutes here, so okay. I've got such a tangent.
We may have to pause it and just and keep going, but
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that must be really exhausting to have jihads against people over such trivial things, because you just have jihads against everybody. You get shortchanged by someone at the bakery. Jihad on you. jihad on everyone. You know.
And it's not like it doesn't have any ramifications with Ayaan Hirsi Ali or who wrote Satanic Verses. That was
Salman Rushdie.
Salman Rushdie, yeah. That sucks. And
the only side benefit of it is that, you know, apparently the fatwa sex is really good sex because women are attracted to a man who's in danger. So, you know, that's the...
I wonder if every time you're compelled to a quickie because you don't know when the door is going to open. Like, it's got to be a quickie. Every time.
Every time the door knocks, you never know who it could be there. Yeah. They could be coming for you that day. So.
Oh God, I've got a story for you along those lines now that I think of it. But yeah, that'll probably have to be offline. Right. I've got such a tangent. You mentioned guts and rock. Like, there's this thing that I've got to talk about. It's stupid. I'm excited.
Do you have enough time on this, or do you want to hang up and we'll get another one going?
Yeah, we'll have to get another one going. We're down to 2 already. All right.
Okay.
Get some water, and I guess we'll be right back, homie.
Sounds good. All right.
All right.